Welcome everyone to another wonderful day with another. I know, I say it all the time, but it's always wonderful. I always have a most beautiful conversation, and I always look forward to that conversation, and especially with the beautiful Dana Shamas. Do you know what? I didn't even try to check to see if I know I almost got caught out. I did say your surname correctly, did I not?
Yes.
And I could have blagged it, and I didn't, because I believe, to be honest, that's how it goes. And this is why I love doing this podcast, because I love it to be live and correct, because we have just a natural conversation. And this is what happens when you have a natural conversation. So I will stop speaking, as I usually do, rabbiting on. And in the meantime, Dana, tell us what you do for your business to help other people, and then we'll go with the flow.
So I'm an executive leadership and wellness coach, and I support leaders, change makers, and healers really learn to trust their intuition and step into a place of authentic leadership.
Okay. Layman terms, please.
I help people trust themselves so that they can lead in a way that is authentic for them. And so for me, leadership is really you being you and you having the courage, the trust, the faith to walk your own path. And I find that as people learn to do that, naturally they become leaders, because that is what leaders do, right? Is that they can see the path forward, they trust it, and they're willing to go there.
Okay, but that must be really difficult to enable them to do things in a natural way, especially when they're used to doing things unnaturally or forcing things because that's how they've been taught. So when you have that person in front of you, how is that possible to turn certain people to do things naturally?
Well, so unfortunately, most of the time it's because they hit a pain point. So usually they have a conflict in their life, they have a conflict at work, they have a health issue where going the way things have been done in the past, the way they're used to doing it, they're taught to doing it, as you've said, doesn't work, and it's painfully obvious it doesn't work. It's causing an issue. And so it is when they recognize that, then there's an opportunity for change. And so, so I use a combination of energy work, reflective practices, and then practical coaching to help shift that dynamic. But it's that combination that's actually really powerful. You know, it's, how do I say this? Kind of the traditional paradigm is that if you try harder, you can make it happen. Whereas the paradigm that I really work with is that if you settle with it, you're honest about it, you can really see it without judgment, then you can unwind what it is and it resolves as an issue in your energetic system and your physical material world.
My God, you've covered plenty there. Physical, mental, all things wonderful. So I take it it's not easy trying to change a person's path or the way they think. And I suppose that you have to do everything from a bespoke point of view, because everybody is different and comes from a different place, a different storyboard, so to speak. So how were you able to analyze people, break things down, and help them from a bespoke point of view? Because I take it you didn't do that from an educational point of view, such as going to university to learn. You must have learned that from a lifestyle point of view, from your own path. Am I going in the right direction? Or am I
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Well, okay. So if that's the case, let's go back. Let's look at your path, and let's see how you're able to be quite gifted into being able to speak to a person, see through them to a certain point of view, and come to a plan to help them change. So we spoke just briefly, literally for about a couple of minutes, and you said you was heavily dyslexic. And I suppose that's one of the things that help you get to the stage where you was able to understand how to read people in a particular and a unique way. So let's start with that. So when it comes to dyslexia, where did your, with hindsight, where did your dyslexia really start for you in a difficult way?
Wow, well, that's a really interesting question, because I wasn't diagnosed until I was in college.
But you've got hindsight now.
Yeah, so hindsight, I would say in school, learning to read. I remember in third grade, I transferred schools, and my teacher told my mom that I couldn't read. And my mom was like, "You're crazy."
No, did she?
My mom did, and was like, she of course can read. But in hindsight, I think what the deal was is that reading out loud in class, I probably really, really struggled. And that kind of cognition process really struggled. I really struggled. And then in learning languages, it was incredibly challenging for me to learn languages. So I think those are the places that it showed up the most, and where it became the most evident. All the other areas I compensated for, to be honest. Not my very compensated, diverse brain figured out many other ways to do things, and so it was not as apparent for quite a long time, actually.
Okay, so let's look into this further. So you found it difficult to read out in the classroom. That obviously affected your confidence. And with that, how did that affect you as a child in other areas? Because if it's going to be a situation you couldn't read out and it was affecting your confidence, then I can only think that when you're trying to, how can I say, communicate with other children in other ways, that knocked your confidence. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, except that I was a very good speaker.
Okay.
And so I think I compensated in other ways, I would say. And to be honest with you, I had a lot of stress growing up. So I would say that those things were way less at the forefront.
Yeah.
So it just never popped up because there were so many other things that were so much more stressful.
So there was other things that were prevalent.
Yes. My parents got a divorce. Just very tumultuous, I would say. I'm sure many other people had many other stories, but for me, those things were quite disruptive. And I would say led to more disruption and dis-ease than not being able to spell or read out loud. And I had a very supportive family. My mom's sister was an educator. She educated gifted and talented kids. So I was around a lot of adults who saw all my other skills and didn't focus on the things that I didn't do well, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I was able to really use that as ways to thrive.
Okay, so you've obviously got other things that were far more prevalent. The divorce, that was really difficult. And what other things than the divorce? Because let's find out exactly the other things that you had to deal with growing up. So you had the dyslexia happen, but other things were at a larger forefront. So what were those other things? I would say like conflict within my family. I looked different than the rest of my family. So I was short, I was heavier,
And to be honest, I would say that those were the things that knocked my confidence more than anything else. And in large part, also led to me being very empowered. Because of those things, I learned very on how to eat healthy, how to live healthy, how to do things differently than everybody else, because food, exercise, all those things affected me different than everybody else in my family. So, and just who, like, whatever, I was like 6 inches shorter than everyone else in my family. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So, all right. So you was larger, you were shorter. And because I suppose it was so apparent compared, you had your family so close to you, can compare straight away. And I suppose you was treated differently, or was that your perception and it was the wrong perception at the time for you?
I mean, it was just a matter of fact, right? All my family, I had a very active family. I had cousins who played professional volleyball and basketball. They were very athletic. And so, you know, like those things weren't available to me in the same way, you know, if that makes sense. Were they not available? No. But, you know, no one looked at me and was like, oh, you know, you're going to be an athlete.
So you've had the dyslexia, but the size was your problem, and you had an issue with it because you was different. So when did it become to a stage you thought to yourself, you know, this isn't right. I'm not happy being the way I was. From a mindset point of view, did you accept that it is what it is and you got on with it for some time? Or did you try and do something with it and then you changed? Or was it a bit of both?
So I actually went on Weight Watchers when I was 10 years old.
Wow. Okay.
My grandmother and I spent a summer and we both did it together.
Okay.
And I was very, like, I followed all the rules, right? And everybody in my family supported me.
Oh, great.
So yeah, everybody was incredibly supportive. And so, you know, that's actually quite empowering because it made a difference, right? And I learned tools that I could modify what I ate in a healthy way. It wasn't like I was starving, right? But it was choosing different foods, choosing different quantities. And I had the ability to do that. I had the ability to say what I want and receive it. I had the ability to say that's not what I want and not have it be forced upon me. And I think that kind of empowering dynamic allowed me to be like, oh, I can do things that will change my life. They'll change how I look. They'll change how I feel. And everybody around me respects that.
Now, that is very interesting for a 10-year-old to have the strength to say what they want, especially when you have peers, you know, at school, you know, they actually tease you. But you know what it's like? When you're at a very young age, you feel quite manipulated and you feel like you've got to conform. So that's quite unusual. At the age of 10, you had the strength to eat what you want and you're okay with doing that. And you had the control to be able to do that. And I take it lose weight at the same time. Now, I'm guessing that was due to the support of your family that you had that gave you that strength and to say you can be what you want, etc., etc. Tell us a bit more about that support that you had that gave you that strength and that actual push in life.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it was really pivotal because there, like I said, there was a lot going on in my family. And so to feel supported in that way was really important. And it also kind of set the stage for me to say, okay, I can do whatever I want. And so like for me, leaving and going away to school was a really big goal. And to be honest, I had to work really hard at it and make some choices so that that did happen. And I really feel like kind of that foundation with the food and the eating and being healthy, like gave me a reward system. Like, yes, you know, you do have to do these things. Yes, it is effortful, but it yields results. And so the effort is worth it. And my family always supported that, right? Like they always saw the goal. They always understood what I was doing, and being able to communicate that was helpful. And then them giving me the freedom to make those choices.
You know, that's so wonderful to hear that you had the support. So with that said, going forward, what else happened as you're getting older? So you're 10 years old and you're going through the school system, and you were empowered to say what you want, when you want, and you did that with food. Now, I take it that rolled over with other things within your life, because if you can empower yourself with something so pivotal and so central to your life to do with weight, and that's difficult, right? That's not easy, you know, if you could do that. So what other decisions did you make as a teenager, especially when you're being bombarded by so many things that your peers want you to do? That's a typical thing, you know, you want to go to the left and then they pull you to the right and they want you to do this and do that. How do you think that strength, how did that help?
I actually think that it encouraged me to surround myself with people who were supportive. You know, like having the juxtaposition of having a family that was supportive, right? And so I knew what that felt like. And so if I was around people that pushed me in directions that were unhealthy, or didn't feel life enhancing, or didn't really value who I was, it became easier to just choose a different, you know, like just move to a different group of people, you know, and to know that I was diverse, right? Like not everyone is like, you don't need everybody for everything, you know, that you
totally.
Yeah, so that you could, you know, be with this group of people and it'd be fine, and be with this group of people and it'd be fine. That again was just very helpful, and never having to fit one particular mold.
Do you know what? That's so inspiring, because you seem to have had that support system, but at a young age, at a reasonably young age, you was in a situation where you had empowered yourself that you can make a decision, and the decision's not made for you. And that's very difficult when you're in your teens and you're getting older. And so you were given, as you said before, those tools, so you can interact with those tools to go and make your decisions to be stronger. So as you got older, and I take it as you went into higher education, did you go into higher education? Things changed for you in higher education around about that age. And so how did things evolve for you when you saw so many other people being in difficult situations? Just give us an example of how you got out of difficult situations because of your mindset that was created years back. That's an interesting one, isn't it? You weren't expecting that question.
What's it? I felt like I think I need more information. I think it always led me to find more solutions, right? Like I think if something wasn't going appropriately or didn't feel good, it established kind of this mindset in me that like, okay, well, maybe there's another path that's better. Like maybe there's a different fix. Like change your perspective, change the viewpoint. What else is out there? What other solution isn't apparent that allows this to come to a better resolution?
No, totally. I totally get that. What a beautiful mindset you had all the way through. You were lucky. You were blessed, didn't you?
Very, very true. Very
Yeah,
blessed. Very
yeah.
lucky.
And you had a really good family. I know you went through the divorce. The divorce may have been the best thing. Only you know that, even though it was painful at the time. But this is what happens in life. We have to go through pain to be able to be stronger within ourselves, to be successful. And successful doesn't only come within a business. It could come within personal, situations. And I can obviously see, as much as listeners, it seems like, she was given the silver spoon, but trust me, she had her ups and downs, like everybody else. But luckily, she had certain tools to make the right decisions for her. Is that correct, Dana?
Yeah.
And she still has ups and downs, diversity and everything else going on. And this is why she has such a beautiful mindset, a beautiful way to be able to help her customers, because she was given the tools at a very young age. Now, it's not to say that you can't still have those tools at a later age, but by having, how can I say, and I say this every time, by accepting yourself for who you are and believing in yourself from the point of view you are who you are, and it is what it is, and you'll make decisions for you, then you can empower yourself to not only help yourself, but other people from a great standpoint. Dana, do you want to speak further from that? Because I know you understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I will just say that I think even at that point in the story, I was still trying to achieve success in the stereotypical way of success. I think it took me many, many years to actually, and it's an ever unfolding process.
Of course. It never stops.
Yeah, it never stops. Who you are and what your gifts are and what you're here to do is, I feel, almost a constant inquiry, to be honest. So yeah, I take it. I am very gifted in the sense that I have always had a positive mindset and support, and also just have such a deep sense of compassion that this road of truly honoring who you are and what your gifts are is, it takes a lot of courage. Because often there are the things that we overlook, the things that aren't quite as sparkly or stand out-ish, that are your greatest gifts. And you have to be the one who values them. You have to be the one who sees them and values them to really bring them to the table. And every single time I see people do that, it creates change in the world around them. And that is just so beautiful and amazing.
Totally. But we're going to change pace here now. I want to know, what was your darkest day, the most difficult, where you thought there is no way you was going to get out of that hole? Think back to a very difficult time that you thought there is no way, there's no turning back.
Yeah, I mean, it's super easy for me.
Okay, let's go there.
Yeah, it's after I had finished business school, the economy was collapsing. So it was the fall of 2008, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a hurricane here. And so I essentially lost my job. There were 2 gigantic trees on our family home and no jobs to be found. And so it was a really like devastating low point, I would say, in the sense of just being like, how have I gotten all this education, had all this experience, and end up here?
Mm-hmm.
And it really took a long time to come back and really rediscover who I was and step forward in a different way.
But hold on a minute. That's not all. You didn't just lose your job. What else happened at the time?
We had a hurricane here, and I had 2 trees fall on my house.
You didn't say that. You talked about the 2 trees, but you didn't say it fell on your house.
Yeah, gigantic, like, yeah. No electricity for like 2 weeks. Yeah, it was an incredibly stressful period of time.
Yeah, because anything to do with a home, even just the moving is, they say it's the most stressful, isn't it? Yeah, I agree. It is. So to lose the job, to have those 2 trees, which could have killed you, big hole in your house, no money to really look after it. How was you going to pay the mortgage? How was you going to deal with the damage? By paying for it, right? Would the insurance look after it? So on and so forth. And so what were the beginnings of you getting out of that hole? I mean, you was feeling so down, you was feeling so negative. What was the start of the turn for you actually feeling better about the situation and finding a path out of the situation?
It was really taking the next best step, just step by step. What is the next thing that needs to happen? What is the next thing that needs to happen? Instead of, anytime you look at the whole gigantic situation, it was pretty demoralizing. But going bit by bit, and I was in a family home, like my family were together, so that was supportive, but also stressful. But it was really just like step by step, like what needs to be done next, what's the next best step, where like it was not bippity boppity boo that everything comes together. It's really just making those incremental movements.
So life went on, you found the job, you were happy-ish in the job. You weren't happy, you was happy-ish in the job. Is that rightly, I'm saying that correctly?
Correct.
Happy-ish in the job. And then one day you thought, maybe I can help people the best way that I can. How did that come about?
Yeah, no, I never said that. What I did have is a client who said, you need to do more. More people need what you are offering. You need to go open your own studio and do your own thing. And literally like gave me the number. I know a landlord. He has a property that's open. It'll be easy. You need to go and do it.
And did you just do it, or did you ponder about it, think about it, come back to it in another couple of years' time? What happened at that time?
I said, okay. And I called the number and had my own small wellness studio a couple months later.
Wow. So you just went for it. Just you believed in yourself straight off. It made sense with what he said. And why did it make sense at the time?
Because there really was no one offering what I had to offer. I had a different skill set. I had a different background. I had a unique approach, unique training, and there wasn't another environment that would allow me to offer those things in a way that made sense. My specialty, like at that time, it was a wellness and yoga studio. I am very good, as you described earlier, at looking at people and like understanding what's going on at a deeper level. So you could imagine in a yoga environment, that's a quite different yoga class than a yoga class that has 20, 30, 50 people in it, you know? And so that dynamic suited itself to smaller classes, one-on-one sessions, and is just not as fun to offer in a room full of 50 people who might be there for other reasons.
So with your business at the moment, you just help one-to-one, you don't do groups whatsoever, you don't deal with corporates, or how does that structure work?
I do one-to-ones. I do have a group coaching program, and I do lead small retreats, but all the groups are small. So my groups are typically 4 to 6 people. My retreats are usually no more than 10 people because of the intimacy. And we usually do a deep level of work. And so for everybody to feel fully supported, a smaller group is easier, better.
And it works for you at the same time. You need that intimacy, and you think that's the right way to help people in general.
For me, and what my gifts are, right?
Yeah.
Like the asking the right questions, pivoting in just this way, like, you know, it's a bespoke process. So I don't have, I mean, I have a framework, but you know, the issues that each individual person is unwinding are unique to them. There are similarities, there are threads, there are reflections of everybody back and forth in the group, which is the funnest part of the group. But, you know, there are just so few spaces in our world where people have enough room to experiment and be who they are. You know, I mean, so many of the spaces that we go into, there are expectations, there are judgments, there's maneuvers, there's agendas, there's priorities. So having enough space that you get to step into a deep place of vulnerability and a deep exploration of who you are and what you feel. You know, that's something to be honored, and that just takes a little more space, right?
Okay, so could you give us a for instance of a problem that your client, think of a client that had obviously you're not going to name names, think of a problem that was quite difficult, almost impossible, yet you were able to solve by using A, B, and C solution.
So one of the funnest ones to look at are difficult relationships at work. And so let's say you have a colleague or an employee who is being manipulative or not 100% honest or true. And so for the client, you know, one, there's just a practicality about that, right? That's a difficult situation to manage for any manager. But two, then there are all these judgments, reflections that come up for the client, right? Why are they doing this? What's the story they tell themselves around that particular situation? And what I find is that actual story which is often unique for each person. But that story is taking more of their energy, more of their thought process than actually being honest with the employee or the colleague. Right?
Yes.
That's just so much going on around what the situation probably could be or might be, and what the consequences might be, and the ramifications, that it's overwhelming and just derails what their purpose is at the whatever environment, the workplace in this example would be. And so when we can deal with that story, right, and settle into what the truth of that is and where those judgments come from, typically the imbalance in the relationship at work, one, either completely resolves, or two, becomes super easy to manage. Like, it becomes very easy to be very clear and direct, set boundaries, and move on. Is that helpful?
It is helpful. And again, it's pushing a personality change, because we're talking about, instead of going around the mulberry bush, you're talking about going from A to B rather than to A to Z. Communication. So instead of being fearful to communicate directly, people tend to dot around the issue, so to speak. Does that make sense? This is what you're talking about. And so I can only imagine it takes some time to have a person go through the transformation, because we're now not talking from just a business point of view, but you're actually helping the person to change positively from a personality point of view. So not only will it be great for business, but actually you can end up splitting a few relationships, by the by, because they change as people to be more straightforward. They know what they want. And so, Dana, you make some big changes, don't you?
Yes.
You troublemaker, you. My God.
Yeah, but if you think about where our world is,
Yeah.
we just don't have time to beat around the bush anymore. People have there are some big things that need to be solved. So learning how to be clear and direct and not kind of be bogged down by all the judgment and fear and story that's there, it just helps move those things along.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm naturally towards that situation where direct is the best way. To the point, I get people quite shocked. I say certain things, and I'm saying I'm not lying. I do say it nicely when I say what I do, but sometimes it's like a straight arrow. It's like, wow, I can't believe you just said that. But I say things nicely, and I say, well, if you want to change the situation, you're going to do A, B, and C, right? I don't have time to be messing around. Life is too short, but say it nicely. You don't have to be nasty. That's the skill set. So,
it is a skill set.
It is a skill. Well, it was before the podcast started. We had a conversation. I think you was quite surprised. I was quite straight and honest and quite open, wasn't I? And that's just the way I am. And I believe. And the thing is, if you are yourself, you filter out all the negativity that comes into your life, and you only get what is good. And what is good is what is good for you. It may not necessarily be good for your partner or good for anybody else, but because you are yourself and being honest and straight, you can only get honest and straight coming back to you, because the people that really don't become to the person you are aren't right for you. And if they're not right for you, then you should not be there for them, and you should not be there for you. And hence, that's how you have quality people within your life, how you become happier once you accept who you are and accept how it should be, and then everything just goes smoother. Anyway, that's my theory. Whether that's
so let me add one more bit to that.
go on.
Yeah, I would also say that really being okay that you do change.
Yes.
And so however you evolve and whoever you come into, right? Having a regular reflection point of being like, oh, okay, that's cool. It used to work, but now this version of me needs X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes time. It does take that. It doesn't happen overnight. But it is a nice way to be if you're happy being that way. It's not for everybody. Not for everybody.
True fact.
Yeah, it's true. It's you can't take everybody to a pool of water. It's how it is. So
you can take them to the pool of water, but whether they're going to jump in or not.
Yeah, exactly. Take the swim, then get out, sit on the boat, take a cruise. They may not do that, right?
True.
Yeah, you're totally right. It is what it is. Well, listen, you're obviously the lady that knows what she's doing, because you've had to live a life of straightness, confidence, while still being vulnerable at the same time on a regular basis, because life isn't like an arrow. It doesn't always go constant, but you know that path, you know what people are going through, and because you can see the signs, because you've had to live those signs, this is why you're in a position where you can read people very, very easily, or reasonably at least, and where you can put them on a path of where they're supposed to be, if they are happy going in that direction. Some people aren't ready for that, so it is what it is, right?
It is, yeah.
Dana, is there anything you want to add that I've missed? Anything you want to say that could be enlightening? Anything for your business, etc.?
I mean, there's so much to say. I don't even know how I would end that, except that it's been an exceptionally lovely conversation. I really appreciate your questions, your straightforwardness, and your honesty. So thank you.
Oh, there you go. It's very dangerous. Two of the same people in one space, listeners. Oh dear. Anyway, and I appreciate your straightness and you giving us your time. And with that also said, how can people contact you to be able to either do a one-to-one, group, etc.?
Yeah, my website is just my name, danashamas.com. And you can get a picture of my coaching services, the group program, and my retreat. You're always welcome to set up a free introductory call, 30 minutes. We can just chat and find out more. And then keep an eye out. I will have a book coming out in 2025. So that will be really fun to share and talk more about.
Ah, okay. That's something to talk about. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Otherwise, we would have been speaking about that. But as she's not a very straight person, she didn't tell me about her book. She didn't tell me about anything. No, I'm only joking. Dana, thank you. And as always, listener, I will always put the information down below. If you can copy and paste, click away to your heart's content with all her details. You can see how she resonates. And if she does with you, then you know how to contact her. Dana, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your wonderful time.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. And in the meantime, everybody, sayonara.